Yeah. So let's kind of remind what our goal was for this evening. Our goal was to talk about managing and maintaining your properties. So what have we focused on? Well, we focused on a portfolio management tool because guys, I got to tell you, even if you hire a property manager, the buck stops with you. You're the owner of the property. You get to keep all that cash flow. You're the one who gets to keep that ROI when you exit. But, we're in the business of real estate investing. That's very different than being an investor. An investor means you put your money in a stock, in a crypto, in a REIT, in a business, and let somebody else do the work. When you're a real estate investor, you are creating your own business. Your business has assets, your properties, and you're in the business of managing and maintaining those assets. And so that's what we're here to talk about. You have a team. Dave's tool helps you keep your team coordinated, your banking team, your property management team, your property maintenance team. Nice platform. Pierre, my goodness, what a great presentation. I mean, he just gave us, I hope you guys were taking notes furiously. And Pierre, we're definitely going to be making sure we grab your checklist because, I have property managers for all my properties, and I still physically visit my properties with an old school clipboard and a piece of paper, and I write the address at the top, and I take a bunch of pictures, and then because I want to see with my own eyes what my property condition is like. And the reason for that is because if you catch stuff early, it's cheap to fix. If something kind of festers or degrades or water damage, like Pierre said, for a couple of years in a row, it costs an incredible amount of money to fix. And so where our next discussion is going to be a panel discussion with three professionals in three different fields. And we're going to be talking about how to save money by being proactive and what some things we can do to our properties proactively to catch things before they get out of hand. Little problems are inexpensive to fix, but little problems turn into big problems if you don't notice them by inspecting regularly in where that Pierre inspected. And we're going to talk about ways to proactively invest in your properties to make those savings. Because ultimately, when you sell that property in 10, 15 years, your profit margin, there's a huge discrepancy in how much you're able to sell that property for based on the condition that it's in when you sell. So we're going to have an expert panel. And we're going to have an expert panel with first, Juanita. She is on our power team. She's an exceptional cleaner, runs one of the best cleaning companies in town. And cleaning is something we don't always think about when it comes to property maintenance. But I'll tell you, we're going to get some insight on just how much damage a dirty property can sustain just by virtue of that. I call it perma dirt, the kind of dirt that you can't get out anymore. And then you have to escalate to someone like our next panelist, Matt from Matlock Painting. And sometimes you just can't clean it. You got to paint it. So his painting company is really, really terrific. They paint everything, not just the walls, interior painting, exterior painting, cabinet painting, which is a really great way to restore older properties without having to rip all the cabinets out. So we're going to talk about that. And then finally, we've got Jesse from Blitz Electric, another area of the property where if you don't proactively maintain it, well, this is a place where not only can you end up spending way more money, but you can burn your darn house down. I know I'm being a little dramatic, but I have seen enough electrical fires that it's not an unreasonable thing to say. So guys, I'm going to facilitate a bit of a panel discussion. I'm going to put questions out there. I'm going to try to get some side chatter going. And what I'd love to see is in the chat, guys, ask questions about some of these different departments. Matt and I were actually having a great chat in the networking break before the start of the presentation, just about some of the nuance of painting. So guys, I'm going to give you a bit of an opportunity to introduce yourself. And the first question I'll ask, I kind of teased it out, but the question I'll ask first is why is your specific area of the home, why is it so important to maintain that area? So Juanita, why don't you talk to us first about why it's so important to keep things clean around the house?
Okay. For me, keeping a home clean or a client's home clean, it's preventative. I can give you some examples. Showers, they're probably the number one area. There's the grout. If you go in and look at a shower, is that mold you're seeing around it, or is that dirt? So if you have someone maintaining your home, you can tell right away. And as a cleaner, you scrub that and you check if it's mold, then you let the client know, you let the property owner know. Glass on showers, if you don't keep the calcium buildup off of those glass doors, the calcium actually will etch into the glass. And it can be cleaned for a while, but if you leave it too long, it's just going to stay there. We've had properties where they're not even that old, but because of the buildup, it ruins the glass. And there's nothing worse, especially if you're going to sell your home. You go look at the bathroom and it's foggy. It's just, I don't know. I think somebody, if they're going to buy your home, they would say, I think I'll take the house with the things that look nice and are well kept, rather than the one that you can almost tell who cares for their home or who doesn't care for their home. I don't know. Did you want me to go on with a couple other things, James?
I think we're going to get into some more specific examples as we go, but that's a really good introductory statement. Is like, a lot of people, when they're managing their properties, are like, the tenants are just messy, but they pay the rent. Okay, whatever. But the example you gave, where it's like, well, it's not just messy. Like if you have a higher end rental property where it's glass shower doors or glass tub surrounds or whatever, well, their cost of replacing that glass is thousands and thousands of dollars. And if it gets permanently etched with calcification, what are you going to do when you go sell that house? Exactly what Juanita said. People are going to look at that house and be like, well, this house, the glass is fresh and looks newish and it's clean. This glass has weird pits in it and is cloudy. And, like those details add up to losing thousands and thousands of dollars on your resale value. So, Juanita, that's a terrific point, and we're going to get a little deeper into that. Now, Matt, I'm going to switch over to you. Let's talk about paint in a home. Because again, people might say to themselves like, you know what? It's no big deal. We'll get it painted eventually, but let's talk about what the paint actually is meant to do, not just from an aesthetic perspective, but from a protective perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I find a lot of people just think paint is paint, and every brand or every sheen is pretty much similar. The cheaper the paint is, everybody's heard, you get what you pay for. And especially with rental units, I found over the years, landlords just want the cheap paint, and they're going to do it every year, every 2 years, which I kind of disagree with, because there's such good paints out there that is actually washable and scrubbable. So when you get those smudge marks on a cheap paint and somebody takes a rag and cleans it, it leaves that dull mark, and it's there until you paint over it again. So if you're got a decent paint on the wall, you can actually wash majority of it and keep it clean that way. Especially when it comes to kitchen cabinets. People don't very often clean their cabinets, and they're completely greasy all the time, and you can smell it when you walk into people's houses and stuff, especially at the top of the cabinets, above the top of the cabinet, below the sink, dishwasher, that kind of thing. So, but paint is very durable these days, and you can get away with not painting your house for 10, 12, 15 years if you use a good paint. So
I love it. Well, we're going to want to explore that a little bit deeper too as we get into it. And Jesse, let's talk a little bit on the electrical end. When you don't necessarily think electrical maintenance, but just like any other part of the home, if you don't maintain it, you start running into problems. And just as we were talking about at the very beginning, little problems escalate into big problems. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, thank you, James. So I'll just tell a little personal story of something that happened to me and why I do what I do in the field that I do. I was working as an electrician. I had industrial experience, commercial experience, residential experience. I just got into residential at that time, but I was uneducated on, I'd only touched new stuff really at the time, and I was uneducated on problems that could arise in your home. And so I had a space heater plugged into an extension cord running full blast in the winter, and I had a house fire. And I lost all my clothes, I lost my computer, everything, right? So, why now, fast forward, 7, 8 years later, why I do what I do is just to educate, homeowners, investors, whatever it might be, on the potential problems that can arise in your home, and help people not have the same problem I did. So
that's really awesome, man. So
yeah.
that actually is I'm gonna ask a follow-up question, because there's a lot of people think, okay, I've heard differing opinions on this, and I'd like to know what you think. So there's a thing called a GFI plug, and Gene, I see your hand up. If you want to toss the question in the chat, I'll make sure I incorporate it in here. There's a thing called a GFI plug, and those typically go in bathrooms and kitchens. But I mean, there's other places around the house and maybe in the garage where that might make a huge GFCI plug. So can you explain what those are, Jesse, and how much they cost to install, and where you can install them, and what kind of problems they can prevent?
Yeah. So they're what GFI stands for, ground fault interrupter. So basically what they do is there's a sensor in there that senses a difference of amperage. So it's like 0.004 milliamps or something, I guess it's specific. But when it senses that potential difference, it'll trip. So if you get water in the plug, it'll trip. And because, water and electricity don't mix very well. So places like your kitchen, your bathrooms, if you have a plug in your laundry room, and your laundry room has a sink, and within 1 meter of any sink, outside, if it's under, I think it's 2.5 meters, and it has to be GFI protected. And so it's just to prevent bad things from happening if you're getting from water and the elements. Another place that you can put a GFI plug in is if you have an old home that doesn't have ground wiring. The Canadian Electrical Code will allow you to, because you want to run modern appliances, but those old homes only have 2-prong outlets and not 3. But to properly bring that up to code so you can run modern appliances, you can put a GFI in, and that GFI will actually act as a ground. And so if there's something going wrong in your appliance, it'll trip the GFI. That sensor is going to sense the difference, right?
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna reiterate that point just in case you missed it. So if you've got an older property and it's old enough that there's 2-prong plugs everywhere, instead of having to rewire the whole darn house, you can just replace those plugs with GFCI plugs. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Jesse?
Yeah, and they'll save you money in the long run, because a GFI plug is, $20, $25 depending. And then, it'll take 5-10 minutes to put it in. So
yeah, it beats ripping all the walls apart and ripping all the wires out and putting them all back in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Now, Juanita, I want to jump back over to you and just talk a little more. You got me really curious about the damage that a lack of cleaning can do. So, that tip about calcification on glass is a really, really good one. And I'm just kind of curious, what are some of the other common types of non-cleaning related damage you can do where, if you let it go long enough, the dirt or the buildup will just it's permanently damaged, and the only way to fix it is replace it. Because again, a lot of people just assume, it's a messy tenant, we'll clean it up when they leave, and that might not actually be possible.
I would say the front of kitchen cupboards. That's something like, Matthew, you just said, they don't people don't even think to wipe around the handles or the front of the cupboards, and grease builds up and it ruins the cupboards. You can try wiping it after a certain length of time, and I wouldn't even say that long. You can try wiping those cupboards and you can't get that grease off. It looks terrible. And so there's your, if you've got newer cupboards, we just did a clean last week, and the house is a nice looking house, but the kitchen cupboard, it makes the house, and they want to sell this home, it makes the house look about 10 years older than the rest of the house. There's little chips in it and grease marks, and yeah, that's one thing in the kitchen. And the vent fans, the grease that collects in those, it isn't good.
Yeah, yeah. So those cabinets. Oh, sorry. There's questions for Jesse there. So Juanita, I'm going to ask another. So what other kind of? So we got the damage on the cabinet. So the group chat is really getting going. So I'm going to rip off that idea, guys. When you're doing your inspection with your tenants, one of the tips I'd recommend is after about the 1 month mark, hop by and see how they're keeping the place. Because if, a month is enough time for somebody to settle in, but if it's already dirty and there's problems, you want to have it in your lease that the tenant's responsible for maintaining and keeping the property in an orderly manner. You want to set expectations that they move in like, hey, you're going to keep this property clean. And if you show up and it's not clean, you got to say, guys, look, you're not keeping the property clean. And the kinds of things that can happen are, you're going to damage the cabinets and I'm going to have to bill you for it. You're going to damage the walls and I'm going to have to bill you for it. You're going to damage the shower surrounding you. I'm going to have to bill you for it. Juanita, what are some of the other things where it's like, it looks like something that can be cleaned and then you go to wipe it and there's just no cleaning it?
Well, in bathrooms, there's also the vent fans on the ceiling. So many times we go into there and it's caked with, like, again, if it's not on there long, you can vacuum it off with a brush in your vacuum. Sometimes we go in there and we try to brush it, that's on there because it hasn't been cleaned in so long. So what happens then is people may, like a renter maybe, or if people just don't know any better, they'll switch on the bathroom vent fan and they're having a shower, hot shower, whatever. The whole room is getting steamy. And some people always say, what's those yellow marks on my walls? What are those yellow spots on the ceiling? Well, the vent fan isn't working or it's plugged. And so you're going to have to redo your walls, the moisture that gets in there. So that I would say that's another important thing to keep clean.
Yeah, that's what we want to avoid. But you know what? Sometimes when it gets to that point, we need to get the painters in there. So Matt, I'm going to ask a few more kind of painting tips. So, one of them, I mean, there's no going back from a place that's been smoked in. Like Juanita, is there really a way to clean away a smoked in house?
You know what? Honestly, I did one that was really smoke smelling. There's a lot of homes we do that people do smoke and you don't really notice it. Once it's clean, it's fine. But the thing I noticed in this place, again, cleaning the vent fan, it just reeked of smoke. So I don't know, if it's been smoked in and not cleaned properly, I don't think you can get the smell out.
Got it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So Matt, that's where I'm going to chat with you is, smoking is becoming rarer and rarer these days, but sometimes you get a smoky place. What do you do from a painting perspective to try to get rid of the smoke smell?
Well, first of all, the worst thing that you'll notice and not get the smell of it very well is the popcorn ceilings, especially if they've never been painted before and they're extremely dry. They dry out over the years. But majority of the time, even if you repaint just a fresh coat or so, you'll still smell it. So a lot of the times you'll actually have to hit a lot of it with an oil-based primer and then 2 coats of water-based paint just to clean it up and get the smell and stains away. And but even in the bathrooms, like if a lot of people, you're getting ready for work, whatever, having to smoke in the bathroom. And it adds to the yellow staining on the walls and around the vents and stuff, because of the moisture. We'll heat it up, warm it up, and it will continue to drip, which leads me to the next thing I want to say about bathrooms is you need to use a pearl or satin finish on the walls, or you'll see those water stain marks. And even if you put another coat of the same paint over it, it'll still flash through. So we just finished a job where we were painting the ceiling. James was painting the ceiling, and he pulled down the vent, and he couldn't even scrape the dirt out and dust out of it. It was just raw. It was like concrete. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was really bad. So when a situation like that, if they're smoking and the vents aren't, I mean, just it's almost a write-off at that point. The best way to do that is gut your bathroom.
Yeah, you'd be gutting the bathroom. And Matt, I want to talk about an issue that Juanita pointed out, which is the kitchen cabinets. You've got a tenant that have aggressive kitchen habits, and they ruin the cabinets irreparably. I know you guys do cabinet painting. Talk to us about the process of actually restoring those kitchen cabinets and how much you can save just repainting them versus replacing. Because if you're replacing the cabinets, guess what? You're replacing the sink and the countertops and maybe the flooring. So it's no joke. So what can we do about avoiding that big of a reno?
Well, what we normally do is we remove everything. We take the doors, the hardware, depending on the whether they're replacing the hinges or not. But we pretty much take everything off, and we sand it as much as possible, depending on the material. We do find a lot of our clients are calling about, like, they have the old 70s oak, that reddy oak, orangey oak cabinets. But we sand it as much as possible, clean it up. A lot of times we'll have to clean it with a cleaner to get the grease off the tops of the cabinets, like the top ledge. That's where the dust and dirt seems to settle. Especially if you have a deep fryer, or you got a gas stove. And there's a picture right there. That's the vent that would not come clean at all. So, but we just we'll sand as much as possible, and then we use a primer called Sticks, which is well named. It sticks to everything, and so it adheres to the material. And then we use a Benjamin Moore product. We have two products we use: Advanced and Command. Advanced is a water-based paint that hardens like an oil-based paint, so it's very durable.
Got it. So it protects everything.
Of this paint. So once we do paint it, we recommend, keep up with the maintaining of it by, any spills. A lot of people don't realize how much they actually spill washing the dishes in the sink or whatever, and then they have a stain on the face of the cabinet. So all that can be washed. The Command that we use is an industrial paint. And we've tried to scratch it with knives and stuff, and we can't even do it. It just becomes rock hard. But it's an industrial paint that they use for pipes, flooring, doors, metal doors, everything. And because of the Sticks primer, we're able to use this on cabinets. So whether it be vinyl or oak or pine.
Wow.
It's and then kitchen cabinets anywhere from, depending obviously on the size and how much work is needed, but you can go anywhere from 25 to $5-6 grand. And that will save somebody 8, 10, 12 years. All depends on how well they maintain it afterwards. So definitely will save money over the years, opposed to a new kitchen.
That sounds incredible. Yeah. How much? So, let's say a kitchen and an 1,100 square foot upper floor of a bungalow, not too many cabinets, but just think a smaller suite, 1,000, 1,100 square feet. How much would it cost these days to do a kitchen? Like, what would be your working range on that?
Well, let's say it's 15 cabinet doors and 10 drawers. You're probably looking at about $3 grand, including the materials and stuff. So yeah.
Wow, yeah. When you consider the cost of actually replacing that's a fraction of the cost to refresh it. That's amazing. And
that's something that we could do in about 4 days, 5 at the most. We normally take the doors off and we take them to our place and we work on them in our garages. We do that in the summer and in the winter. We have heated garages, so it's nice to work in, and then we take them back, and that way the doors are off to work on the frame of the cabinet. So yeah,
Awesome. Well, it's, the common theme is preventative maintenance and what you can do on your end as an owner to elongate the life of your property, but also protect it from further damage. So Jesse, I'm going to kind of bounce it back to you, because again, we don't think too much about preventative maintenance in the electrical space, but electrical involves a lot of components. There's the plugs and switches, there's the wires in the walls, and then there's where the wires go to, which are the light fixtures, and ultimately the panel. So what are some things that, when an owner goes to pop their head into their property once a year, Pierre gave a lot of great tips of things in the inspection end of things. What can you be looking out for in the electrical space of your property when you're going to do a 20-minute breeze through the property? What can we do to make sure at a glance we know that the electrical health of the house is in good shape?
Yeah, at a glance, the electrical panel is essentially the heart of your electrical system. So, some people, personally speaking, some people have bad hearts, other people have good hearts, and that's really the same. Some people need to have heart surgery. Other people are fine until they're 100 years old. That's kind of the same deal with a lot of houses, is sometimes your panel will last for decades, and then other times they'll show signs that, there is signs of failure. One thing to look out for is flickering lights. Your lights are flickering. Turn on the oven, turn on the dryer, and see if those lights are flickering. And because that's a good sign that there's something either wrong with the service coming into your house or the panel itself, and it's starting to show signs of failure because you got a heavy load drawing on the system, and then it's making other components in your system, in your electrical system, malfunction. So flickering lights is when the stove or dryer is going. It really, at a glance, is one major component that you can look at. Another thing is just your plugs and switches. You can turn on your plugs or turn on your switches. If your switches are getting sticky and they arc when you turn them on, it's showing signs of failure. Going back to the GFIs, if that push there's two buttons on there, test and reset. Just make sure that is operating properly. So push the test button, make sure it resets properly. Plug an electric toothbrush in there, whatever. Make sure it's working. And then for the other plugs, just the cover plates or the plugs themselves, just look for damage. A lot of times you'll get damage in the plastic, and a lot of times that's a result of something. Your plug is heating up, cooling down, and then it makes the plastic brittle or whatever. And then when you pull that plug apart, sometimes that the whole plastic piece will just come right off. So just, flickering lights and just, general signs of wear and tear like that would be, at a quick glance, that's what I would say.
Yeah, those are great tips. When you're just popping in that property for your maintenance. And guys, remember, I highly recommend, yes, you can hire your property manager might provide that service, but a lot of property managers will have a glance at the property. If you want to get a proper, thorough inspection, you might want to get Pierre to do an annual inspection of your property, but it's not cheap. I want to send as much business Pierre's way as possible, but one of the things that I will remind you is you're in control of your property. So it is, for 20, 30 minutes of work to check some of these key things, test your GFI plugs, test the caulking, et cetera, et cetera. It's really, really worth it. Because remember, I'm going to say it again. If you fix a small problem, it's a super cheap fix. If it turns into a big problem because it goes unchecked, then you're spending the big bucks. So Juanita, I'm gonna bounce back over to you and let's talk about that inspection. Like, what are some key indicators where, something, there's a difference, maybe someone's a little messy. I mean, for the people that have kids out there, often there's toys all over the place because kids are, they're full of joy and energy. But when we're walking through the property and just inspecting it as an owner, as someone who cares about the condition of the property, what are the kind of things where you're like, okay, that's probably not a big deal, but what are things where you're like, ooh, that's a red flag, and that might turn into something that's really expensive to replace from a cleanliness perspective?
I would say as soon as you walk into a property, you can automatically tell right from when you walk in the door. Not that these things I'm about to tell you, not that they would damage your place, but I'd be really, I guess, concerned. Like baseboards that haven't been wiped. You walk into your property, baseboards haven't been wiped. The thing that I actually noticed is the front door, that there's fingerprints all over the front door. As soon as you walk into a property too, you can tell like the smell of a property. A lot of times, even in a shower drain, you can pop them up. But if you notice the house is stinking or whatever, pop that up and open that up. It can be disgusting. Like soap, hair, shampoo, all that collects in there, and the smell can, travel through the house. I don't know. There's so many things, to be honest, that would be the red flag. But even walking into a property and you look at the windows, fingerprints all over, and I'm not trying to be like a mean, nasty woman, but it's like you can tell the cleanliness right away. Take a peek under the fridge or the stove along the sides. If it's full of dust and crumbs, it's not going to be properly looked after. You can bet when you pull that fridge out, there's probably dog hair, dust, and that's if you're paying for those appliances as a landlord, those appliances aren't going to last if they're collecting all that kind of stuff behind them. So right. I don't know. I would kind of check that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, that's a terrific point. Is a stove will last 20 years, but it's not going to last very long if it gets all gunked up with hair and debris and whatever. So we're not trying to pick on people for being messy and dirty per se. We're really trying to draw a tangible link here between a dirty tenant and the damage it can do to and how much it shortens the life of different parts of your property. People who bring in their dirty boots, all that gravel is going to scratch up the lino and the tile at the front, causing you to have to replace it sooner. The baseboards are going to get damaged sooner, et cetera, et cetera. So, we're really trying to show you guys like a little cleaning goes a long way. And another thing that's really important is that a good tenant will keep a property clean if it's clean when they move in. So the last one I want to kind of talk about is a move out clean and just the difference in cost. So we need to imagine the same place we're talking about, an 1,100 square foot, 3-bedroom, upstairs of a bungalow, suited house, a little bit older, but generally in good shape, maybe recently renovated. What would a standard move out clean cost? And then what would a, oh my God, deep clean cost, give or take? Like how much more money are you spending out of your pocket as a landlord to deal with cleaning up after a dirty tenant?
If you have a decent tenant, I would say 1,200 square feet or so. You're looking at 6 hours. We took 37 hours to clean a house just because it's a filth. Now, what we do, like we go in and wipe all the cupboards out. We pull the appliances forward. We clean the appliances in and out. But this house had mice in it, and they did have a painter come in and paint, but they just painted over mouse turds that were on the baseboards. Like it was a disaster. There was nests inside the stove or inside the oven. Like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So it can cost 6 times as much for a move out clean for a tenant that's messier and dirtier. And obviously they weren't smart enough to hire Matlock, so they got a crummy painter that painted over stuff. But, you know, again, guys, I really want to dial this point home. So, you know, Matt, this 1,200 square foot suite we're imagining, what is the working range for painting an upper suite? Because guys, if you have a bedroom that's super dirty and you're like, maybe I can just get away with painting one wall, the other 3 walls are going to look like garbage. So it's really hard to get, like, you don't really just spot paint stuff. It's either painting it all or cleaning it all. And so again, if there's a point where it gets too dirty to clean. So how much does it cost to paint to paint a 1,200 square foot suite these days with good quality paint, the kind of paint that's going to last?
About a 1,200 square foot unit. I mean, depending on, it all depends on, every unit's different. Every house is different, but it's, give or take, you're looking at maybe 3,000, 3,500, somewhere, give or take. But it all depends. When I do a walkthrough, and like we were talking about baseboards and stuff, if I have to clean everything first, then that's going to be, a little extra. But if I could touch on like the baseboards and stuff, like if you have a dog and stuff, like just a quick vacuum over the living room or the kitchen floor is just not going to do it. It gets under baseboards. It gets under your stove. Like we're referring to tenants right now. I deal with mostly homeowners and they don't do that. So we've pulled out fridges and stuff, stoves to paint the back wall or the baseboards. Absolutely disgusting for the most part. Like it's, and your paint job is going to go a lot longer if you're keeping the maintenance part of it clean versus complaining about it after 2 years, wondering why your baseboards are, gray, black, smudged up in that. It's because they haven't been kept clean. Just takes a few minutes to wipe the baseboards down in a room.
Yeah, that makes all the difference. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So guys, I appreciate you. We're kind of going to wrap up, but here's the point that I keep driving home, guys. A tenant that is just a little messy, a tenant that's just a little unclean, a tenant that isn't paying attention, your tenant turnover can go from costing a couple of $100 to thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of cleaning bill and painting bill just because of the way they're keeping the place. So it really, we're tying it all together. It pays off to pop your head in on a regular basis just to make sure they're keeping the place in good shape, because there's a massive cost associated with the tenants not maintaining the place. And if there's little things bubbling under the surface with the electrical, you can end up burning your room down, just like Jesse. And we don't want that either, guys. So take care of your place. It'll take care of you. We do our ROI calculations, calculating on a bit of market appreciation, mortgage pay down. Well, I'll tell you, you're not going to get market appreciation if the market goes up and your property's value goes down because it's not being maintained. So we're talking to the best in the business here, guys. If you need cleaning, Juanita cleans all my places. Matt does all of our painting. Jesse's done electrical for my parents. They're crazy senior citizens, and he's super patient with them. So if he can do electrical work at their house, he can do electrical work anywhere. So guys, I appreciate you sitting on the expert panel. Thank you so much.